Good afternoon and welcome. We're so glad you're joining us this afternoon. Today is March 2nd, 2026. We are here for our work session with the Director of Community Planning, Infrastructure, and Resources, Director Leslie Ellis. We're here for our weekly work session with the CPERS group. I am Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shai McNally, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. I welcome you. Thanks for joining us. I'm joined by Larimer County Commissioner John Cafalis and Larimer County Commissioner Kristen Stevens. Also, our County Manager Lorinda Volker is at the table. We have several guests and important topics today. I'm going to just turn this over right now to Director Leslie Ellis, and thank you and welcome everyone.
Okay, yes, good afternoon. Happy March. Leslie Ellis, Community Planning, Infrastructure, and Resources Director. And as you noted, we have a fairly full agenda today with two bigger topics and then a few updates after that too. So we'll start out with our oil and gas legal consultant, Matt Sura, is here today to update you on the work that he's been doing. And of course, Matt Lafferty is part of that team on oil and gas, as well as Frank Haug are here if you have other questions. And I believe Matt has a quick update as well. So we'll start with that and then we'll move on to our second item. So thank you.
Okay, that does work. Good afternoon. Matt Sura, Special Counsel with Larimer County on oil and gas issues. Just a couple things to update you on. Larimer County has been working on a couple of rulemakings, actually now 3 rulemakings, with the Air Quality Control Commission and the Public Utilities Commission, and wanted to update you on those items. Please feel free to stop me anytime and ask questions. First, we'll start with the Public Utilities Pipeline rulemaking, and this is something that has been going on for a while, and we've been involved for a while. It was 2022 when there was legislation that required the PUC, the Pipeline Safety Administration, to look at using advanced leak detection and repair. And this is something that they started on about 2024 and then ended up saying, you know what, PHMSA, that is the Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, a federal organization, was going to be doing similar rulemaking. And so they pulled back and they said, we're going to stop, we're going to pause until we've got clear direction from the federal government. Because, you know, we thought that was pending at the time. Well, the Biden administration, got sued a number of times, and they certainly did an extraordinary amount of public outreach. Anyways, it extended until the very end of their administration, and they filed for the rulemaking, the final rules to be published in the Federal Register the day before the Trump administration came on. And of course, they didn't make it in there. The Trump administration said, we're not going to see any new rules be published. We're going to review everything. And so that never happened. But I think what's really telling is that the state government decided, you know what, we think that these public safety rules are important. We're going to work on them, and we're going to start with the PHMSA rules as a starting place for the Colorado rules. And so the PUC Pipeline Safety Program process is different than other rulemakings that you might be familiar with. There's an administrative law judge that does a recommended decision after hearing from all parties. They then allow for exceptions to be filed, which is an appeal process. The PUC then registers a decision, and then there's one more appeal process called a reconsideration. I reached out to a number of local governments, and a number of local governments got involved in commenting, and then ultimately all the local governments involved ended up working with Larimer County to work on joint comments for the exceptions and ultimately the reconsideration. And I think that that's important because it elevates our voice and it shows that all local governments are speaking with one voice, and I think that it makes us more effective that way. The reconsideration was based on primarily 3 things. First, that the PUC required advanced leak detection threshold of 10 kilograms per hour for all pipelines. And that's really problematic because there's all sorts of different pipelines. There is pipelines, say, for transmission lines, the big transmission lines that are bringing natural gas to our communities, and then there's the smaller distribution lines that bring it to our homes, and that's on the utility side. And there's also oil and gas side, which is those midstream gathering lines that are coming from the oil and gas sector. Well, this 10 kilograms per hour is a leak that can be seen from space, which is great because we do have satellites that are out there and we want them to be using that technology, but it certainly doesn't work for distribution lines. There are no leaks that you would be able to detect with that threshold. And so it's problematic. PHMSA had a 0.2 kilograms per hour leak detection threshold for those distribution lines that come into our homes, and that's really more appropriate. And so that's one of the big issues that we're fighting. The next one is they're looking at leak grading for the first time in the country's history, but also now the state. Typically, there are two leak grades. There's catastrophic failure and it needs to be immediately dealt with, and then there's everything else. And everything else didn't have to be repaired, ever. It needed to be monitored, but never repaired. And that has, obviously, consequences for public health and safety, but also for the climate. And so, for the first time, we have grade 1 leak, which is, again, catastrophic. You need to repair it immediately. Grade 2 leak needs to be repaired within a year. And then grade 3 leak needs to be repaired within 2 years. And that's, great help for public health and safety and also the climate for Colorado. So that's great news. However, PHMSA also required that grade 2 leaks that really need to be addressed, but not as quickly as a grade 1 leak, needs to be repaired within 30 days if it meets the following criteria. 1, it's high pressure, and 2, it's near homes in residential areas. Local governments, in the public health and safety business felt that was important and asked for that to be added. Finally, the PUC is not considering adequately environmental protection. They're really doing the leak grading based on only safety considerations and not the impact to the environment. And we, at the state of Colorado, are trying to limit particularly methane, which is a very potent greenhouse gas, trying to limit that. And there should be regulations and leak grading and considerations given to those leaks that are only impacting the environment and may not pose an immediate threat to public health and safety. For example, a leak that's in the middle of a field that is, certainly would cause problems if it was close to a home, but it's not. We still think that if that's a enormous leak, that it needs to be addressed immediately because it does pose that huge impact to climate. So I'm going to pause there. Again, this has been an ongoing issue and something that Larimer County has been involved in for a while. It is coming to the end. They haven't decided on reconsideration motions, but we're expecting that within the next month.
Great update. Thank you very much. Colleagues, do you have any questions? Commissioner Stevens?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. So coming to an end, do we have any indication of how they might change? And with our sort of community coalition, would that, or county coalition, is that very helpful to kind of making them see the points, or do you have any idea what the outcome might be?
Well, there's a pressure campaign from the local governments, certainly. There's also some conservation organizations that are involved. And there's kind of two ways that we're looking to pressure the PUC to do the right thing in this case. The first is, just making sure that folks know that this rulemaking has happened, doing presentations like this, but also educating legislators. Because legislators are the ones that first required advanced leak detection rulemaking, but ultimately can hold them accountable. And it just so happens that the PUC is going through their reauthorization right now. That happens, I think, every 5 years. And the reauthorization is a time for the legislature to look broadly at the PUC and to see if any changes are needed to be made. And this is certainly something that is being brought up in that discussion. And so that is going to be helpful in elevating this issue for the legislators, but also the PUC commissioners as well.
Great, thanks. So good, and I'm glad that you're pursuing this, and I'm glad we have that coalition of governments to do that. Yeah, I mean, there are clearly safety issues, but the environmental and climate issues of the methane leaks are also something we'll deal with at some point, soon, probably sooner than later. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Gonzalez, you have questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Matt.
Sure.
It's not clear to me that you actually answered Commissioner Stevens' question. I mean, what are your expectations around the outcome of this reconsideration? Do you anticipate that they may concur with these recommendations? And then my follow-up to that, if I may, sir, is you mentioned the coalition that you showed on the slide. Are there other local jurisdictions that are engaging in more statewide focus?
Yes. So to answer your first question that I failed to answer completely, it's really hard for me to say. Honestly, I would like to think that the PUC is watching what's happening with the reauthorization, and this issue is going to come up there. I know that it's really difficult to appeal to them other than the formal process, because otherwise, ex parte communication. And so it's really difficult to lobby them at this point. We're kind of having to go through the official channels, and I feel like we've put forward some really important arguments that they should be swayed by. There's some great local governments that we've been working with all along. This is one that was kind of an ad hoc coalition that I threw together based on people that I know through other work that I'm doing, and I'm going to be talking about in a minute with the air quality issues. A lot of local governments meet, and Matt has been on some of these calls. The first Wednesday of every month, we meet with those local governments who are interested in oil and gas reform or oil and gas regulations generally. And the local government designees like Matt and others meet and just generally share ideas and updates as to what's happening. And that's some of what has engendered, this cooperation and working together on some of those rulemakings.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
First, I'm just, really excited about the coalition. There's definitely stronger together and united in kind of these efforts. So, and I'm sure it's coming across as pretty serious coalition to deal with. I think that's pretty remarkable. When we talk about the PHMSA and almost getting there and then completely getting stopped. Do you feel like the .2 that was recommended by the PHMSA, but different than the 10 here, do you think we'll get back to the .2, or do you think it's going to be somewhere in, any indications that that recommendation especially would be taking into consideration, or did you already mention that? I'm just wondering about that level.
I think of the recommendations, that's the one that they're going to have to take the most seriously, because as written, the regulations don't make sense. It's using, I don't know, an analogy would be that, there's all sorts of different hammers, but you don't use a sledgehammer for everything.
Yeah.
And that's what this does. This is, taking a sledgehammer for even delicate work, which is, the kind of nuance, really delicate work to ensure that there are no leaks coming into homes or in residential areas. That takes, a different level of and different types of technologies than would be used for these big leaks that you're looking at from a satellite, for instance.
I think that was remarkable to hear about. You can see it from a satellite. That's pretty disturbing to think about happening in our communities. And quite frankly, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
So, and maybe this is a question for another day, but is the federal administration not going, are they watching kind of our rulemaking and maybe going to inhibit in some way? Or are we seeing any of that as we're seeing it in other areas?
They're probably interested, and no, they can't, because there are, both federal legislation and also reflected in our local statutes, state statutes, that state that we can go beyond the federal government in both these PUC regulations, but also air quality regulations, which I'm going to be talking about next.
Great, okay. I think that's all I have for now. Remarkable work, and Matt, thank you for partnering with that, and Leslie, thanks for supporting all of this, and just really gives me some hope and some of these things that we know are happening, that we're making progress, and I just really appreciate the update.
Well, if you wouldn't mind, I've got just a quick little
keep going.
about air quality.
I just think that was remarkable what you just shared, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you. This is along the same lines, where the Air Quality Control Commission decided to advance some regulations that were required by the EPA last year, and all states had a deadline of this year to enact these regulations. Well, the first thing the Trump administration did was say, those deadlines are no longer active. We're reconsidering the entire basis for these air quality regulations as they're imposed on the oil and gas industry, and it's expected that they're going to be eliminated entirely. Having said that, Colorado, being the leader that it is, and looking for opportunities to reduce emissions for both climate concerns as well as our ozone issue, took on this regulation and adopted it on February 20th. And what's important, I think, particularly important for both Larimer County and the Front Range, is that for the first time we're requiring wellhead-only facilities to do LDAR, leak detection and repair. They're requiring these wellhead-onlys, these single horizontal or vertical wells that are out in the field that have been there forever, that are at this point, from the 1970s or 80s, and can be leaking. We've seen about a 20% leak rate in those older facilities, and while they're not enormous leaks collectively, there's a lot of them out there that are leaking. And so for the first time, they're having to do instrument checking of those, like the instruments that are available at Larimer County, where they're using infrared cameras to find those leaks. They're going to have to do it at least once a year now. And this is the kind of thing, this is using a different methodology, but this is method 21, where you use soapy water. And this is, an example of a number of wellheads just within the last month that are leaking in a small area in Weld County. So, that's something that, again, Colorado is leading the way, trying to enact policies that the previous administration had put forward, regardless of the fact that the current administration is trying to retract them. And finally, there's a new rulemaking, and this is something that a lot of the local government coalition, and this is a coalition that's even bigger than the one that I described for the PUC. We're going to take a pass on this because it's a fees issue, and it doesn't sound really that important. There's not a clear line between making sure that the agency has enough funding to, emission reductions, but clearly there is. Air Pollution Control Division does really important work, and they need the funds to be able to do it, and particularly in a Tabor environment where we're constantly trying to shift money from these different sources. If you've got fees that are going into these agencies. Those are fees that they can count on and use for their important work. And so there's these fees being increased, and the reason that the local governments got interested in it is because, frankly, when they were rolling out this, the oil and gas industry came up in droves and said that they were going to be, asking them to not put any new fees on the oil and gas industry. And it was an overwhelming show of force, and it felt as though the Air Pollution Control Division could really use the support in their proposal to increase fees. And some of them, the fees are nominally increased, some of them are, as up to 60% increases. But that shouldn't take much time. It's more, again, continuing to work with the local government coalition and showing support for the Air Pollution Control Division in their work. And that's it.
So, can we get a copy of the slides?
I'm happy to
That'd be
provide that
great.
to you.
Okay, and I think there was some from previous work session too, that'd be, or whatever talk we were doing before.
Okay.
It'd be great to get those, so I'm sure my colleagues would like those as well. Colleagues, do you have any other questions, Commissioner Stevens?
Well, question on the fees, is there no, there's no tie to, consumer price index or anything like that? They just stay kind of flat until somebody decides to readopt, or new fees?
And there's, I don't know that it's legal to have them go up automatically like that. And that's something that would be helpful, should be in place, because this is cumbersome. And every time, it's a political nightmare for the agency to ask, for a fee so they can do their job. It should go up automatically, but no, that's not something that happens currently, and I'm not sure that it would be legal to do so. So this is part of governance, is to make sure that the agency that's doing that regulation is fully funded.
Well, yeah, some of the modeling and some of that work is gets pretty expensive, and is.
Absolutely right, and all costs are going up,
Sure.
including for the agencies.
Okay, well, yeah, definitely, obviously support that, and it would be nice to get some kind of thing that would allow for that, because we have fees that we are allowed to tie, inflationary measures to, so, I don't know why they wouldn't have that ability, but I guess it varies depending on the fee, but.
Yeah. It's an excellent point. It's just not something that they're able to
Sure.
do in
Just
the
curious.
Air Pollution Control Division.
All right, thank you.
I don't have any questions, just thank you for your due diligence and collective work together, yes.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Your insights and bringing us up to date. There's obviously a lot been going on, and I'm just really grateful for all of it. It's something that I know we all deeply care about still in the progress, but there's just so much happening, obviously, that trying to keep our pulse on everything. So thank you for helping us keep track of all this. It's really, really, I find it very tremendously helpful. So, Lorena, do you want to add anything, or Leslie?
I guess, Matt, I'll just add, the fact that you've been able to put a coalition together that we're part of, we really appreciate. Being one voice among many, we know is a lot stronger, and so I think that is the real value of having a legal consultant come in and really help us find like-minded organizations who have some of the same concerns. So thank you for your work there.
Yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. And Matt Lafferty has a quick update as well before we move to the next item.
You always want these things to plug right in. Thank you, Commissioners. Matt Lafferty, Principal Planner, Community Development Department. On the screen right now is area in the very southeastern reaches of Larimer County, Johnstown area. The yellow area you can see on this map right here where my cursor is actually in Johnstown. The area just north of it is Larimer County proper. This is right at the county line with Weld County. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. This area right over here is an existing dairy farm that is operating down in that portion of the county. And you can see here that we have two oil and gas operations here. They're called the Jodster sites. These sites were approved by the ECMC, Energy Management Commission, long before we even had regulations. And so these sites were already existent. This is a series of about 15 wells, and this is a series of about 15 wells. And as you zoom in, you can see that these are the production facilities, collection facilities. They collect the product, they do the separations, make sure that it gets distributed into the proper lines and sent off to various production facilities. There was an opportunity to build a third production facility right at this location to accommodate a series of wells that are going to be drilled over here in Johnstown, which has recently came up, if you recall, a question from Ms. Karen Artel about the Carnation facility, they're calling it. It's another 15 to 20 wells that's going to be drilled right here. Before that proposal came through, the owners of the Jodster facility, Oxy, came forward and asked the county if, rather than building a whole nother production facility here, if they could update two pieces of equipment right at this location and put in a couple additional, what we call separators, and a couple other pieces of equipment over here. If they could update those facilities and rather than building a whole third facility, just operate off of these facilities. And we thought that that was a productive thing, not to build more stuff on the ground and to have more opportunity for leaks and other things in equipment and whatnot. And so we agreed to that as a minor modification to the facility, which the director was allowed to make a determination on that. So Rebecca Everett and I worked on that and agreed to it. Since then, the application for these wells has come in. There's about 20 wells going to be right in this location here. They'll run a line over here and hook into these facilities. We did receive one complaint just recently from the gentleman that owns the dairy here. He's concerned primarily about noise and how the noise impacts his cattle operation and his dairy operation, and wants to make sure that noise is mitigated to the maximum extent possible, not to interfere with his operations. As you can see, we've done a great deal of work in the past over here. The community did on those facilities, and I'm sure that caused a great amount of disturbance. So I passed this gentleman off to the Colorado Department of Health and Public Environment because they comment on these applications as well directly, and they asked for an additional comment period to extend the comment period to address things like noise. I also asked that the CDPHE consider requiring them to operate or do the drilling during non-PICO zone periods and to electrify their pads as possible during the drilling operations. To that point, we were going to leave the conversation up to CDPHE, but after consulting with Matt a little bit more on this, I think that we would like to make comment on behalf of the property owner in that area that we would like to see that there be the appropriate noise mitigation measures put into place to protect his operation and make sure that they do operate in those non-ozone peak periods. And so if you're okay with that, we'll go ahead and make those comments.
Thumbs up from Commissioner Kowalski. Yeah, I think I'm thumbs up too. I think it's really important too for the landowner to understand that we stand in partnership, and will they be also, I assume I say he, but will they also be testifying too, or bringing some folks in?
Yeah, he'll have an opportunity to testify on his own.
Okay.
Yes.
And so I appreciate you building that partnership. And
Sure.
Is this coming up soon?
It'll be, I think, May when
May?
it comes up, because
Okay.
they asked for a extended period of time to make comment. CDPHE did.
Okay. Interesting, interesting, some pluses with the organization working with us to, reduce impact, but still it's an
Yeah.
impact. So Commissioner Kafalis.
Just a question out of curiosity, perhaps, and that is, when you describe the potential for a third production facility, because it's going to be a minor modification which the community development director can decide administratively, had that been that bottom piece of land, if they had decided to build out that facility, production facility, would that have been have to come before us?
That would have probably came directly before us because our new regulations would have required that to be added on, yeah.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But the drilling component wouldn't. So because
Because
they're
it's in
operating in
Johnstown.
two different
Because it's in
jurisdictions, it
Johnstown.
would have really been a complicated measure.
That would have been interesting. Thank you, colleagues.
And thanks for explaining that nuance, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Thank-
Never a dull moment.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
Matsura. See you around the neighborhood.
Okay, Leslie Ellis again. I will move us to the next item, which is the Water Master Plan, an update on implementation work that's been going on for the past year or so. And there are some handouts at the dais that include the slides. So that should help with the presentation as we move forward. I'm intending to do kind of a quick flyover on some of these sections because there are some longer lists on some of these slides and they're a bit wordy, but you have the information, and if you have questions, please let us know. So this is a project that has a team of many. Some of the folks are here in the room today. But we have many departments who are working on different projects that relate to or touch the master plan for water, or are working with partners in the community. And so you can see here we have staff from community development, from extension, natural resources, climate and sustainability, the manager's office, OEM, Office of Emergency Management, engineering, and the service area. And so I'm here representing that larger team and all the work that's being done across the organization. The county has really been kind of a connective tissue or convener as part of this plan, and this plan outlines our role in supporting conservation, in protecting watershed health, collaborating with stakeholders to ensure long-term regional water security. And this is very timely right now as we start to anticipate a season of drought ahead. The plan was adopted, as you well know, about just over a year ago in December of 2024. And so we want to make sure that we keep moving ahead on the strategies that it identified and that you adopted as part of that plan a year ago. But by way of reminder, probably mostly for folks who aren't here in the room today, but why do a plan in Larimer County where we're not a water provider? And a big part of that, I think back several years ago, we did a water study to understand our challenges around growth, drought, wildfire risk, and so on. And so the county, even though we're not a water provider, we are a lot of the area of the watersheds that do serve the water providers in the area. And with the projected population growth and the fact that we have residents and businesses in our county that rely on over 120 different water providers, there was a lot of foresight, I think, of looking at how this might relate to decisions that we do make in the county around land use, and then how we support the well-being and health, safety, and so on of the water providers in the community that rely on them in the area. So a lot of partnerships and a lot of work there to support the many aspects of water related to the things that we do have some authority on. And of course, agriculture is a big part of our county as well, and so that is focused on. Again, here's just a quick reminder of the vision and goals behind the water plan, but it supports these 5 goals around minimizing threat to watersheds and communicating and collaborating around water sustainability, promoting water literacy in the community, aligning land use planning, and enhancing water efficiency and conservation. And then from that, it establishes these 10 strategies that I'll delve into to talk about what we've been working on. One of the unique aspects of this plan is its watershed focus and watershed health. And that is a bit unique. You don't typically see that in water provider plans, but because of our geography and the situations with wildfires and high burn severity and source water quality being so tied to these watersheds in the hills and the mountains, it's an important component, as well as the habitat areas. So that brings us to the strategies, and there are 10 strategies, half of which we are the lead agency on, and you can see at the top of the list here, and then half of them are really ones where we play more of a supporting agency role, and we have many, many partners in the community who are doing a lot of the work, and we may partner with them or support that. And you have this list in your handout, so I'm not going to read through them. This also pulls from 2 pages of
Leslie, can you turn your mic down?
I'm sorry, I accidentally bumped it. So this also pulls from 2 pages of the plan that include the list of strategies in more detail as well. So now I want to touch on what we've been doing for the last year or so since the plan's been adopted, or ongoing work that's been underway, some of which has been going on since even before the time of the plan. But there's been a lot of work around land use code and building codes, securing funding, hosting educational events, and supporting various projects. We have a new position in the Extension Office I'll introduce momentarily. So there's a wide variety of steps that we've been taking, and I'll go through that as tied to each of these 5 areas that we lead on related to the plan. So for these next couple of slides, the first italicized parts are directly from the plan that identifies what we're working on or what actions we should be taking, and then the list below are referencing the projects that we have going on. So for this one, for instance, you can see there's work that we're doing as led by our Office of Emergency Management, integrating our plan actions and goals into the ongoing hazard mitigation plan. Some of this you heard about this morning at your work session too with Heidi Pruis. And then focusing on drought as a high priority risk category. So they're doing a lot of work around that now in OEM and through that planning effort. You also had a work session a few months ago about the plan integration for resilient scorecard work, and so that's another effort that's starting to pull in many plans, including the water master plan actions. So that's something that will identify where there's alignment around the plans. And then coming up later this year, as you've heard from Rebecca in her work plan, and as well as housing needs, we'll be integrating the housing needs assessment with a water supply component, and furthering their water supply element. When the water plan was adopted, it was adopted as a component of our comprehensive plan, but that predated the work that's happening at the state to establish criteria for water supply elements. So there's a little bit of work we have to do there to align our plans, as well as updating the strategic growth analysis. So that's work that's on the horizon for later this year coming up. Okay. Work around water efficiency and conservation. Again, much has been done in community development and planning, as you're aware, as you've adopted land use code standards for non-functional turf last year, a building code to address wildfire resiliency. And then we have ongoing community education regarding water-wise landscaping. That actually happens through our extension office and has for many years, and is an important resource for the community. And then we are, later this year, we'll be developing land use code standards for wildfire resiliency, which might also promote water efficient landscaping, I should say. Okay, on the agriculture category, promoting a viable agricultural economy, this is an area where I actually have 2 slides because there's a lot happening around this through multiple departments. But we have our Climate Smart, our Future Ready group working on water sharing agreements with the agricultural community to address drought. That's happening through the end of 2026. And we have hired a new natural resources coordinator, Jenna Brager, am I pronouncing that correctly? Who's here today. And if we have a little bit of time, we'll have her say hello and introduce herself. But she'll be working ahead to identify best ways to coordinate with our agricultural community and address buy and dry issues and other water issues longer term. Initially, just coordinating with the agricultural community and understanding the issues and getting to know them and making that connection. And then our Transfer of Development Rights project may provide us some opportunities to connect water with conservation as well. To continue that category, we are also have several departments who are exploring a modeling tool to assess lands and avoid buy and dry. And so that's something that's in early stages, but might be promising to help us identify properties and property owners that could be very helpful. We're also, as you've heard from Megan this morning, employing and using conservation easements to conserve agricultural lands and address and ensure ongoing agricultural viability for in-stream flow purposes. And just last year, the department completed 4 conservation easements that had water rights tied to the conservation easement for those purposes. And of course, that's always done with willing landowners. The Agricultural Advisory Board plans to provide input on water issues impacting agriculture through its 2026 work plan as well. And then we've held agriculture water film events in late 2025 with partners, and that was well received, and we got good feedback and some additional contacts and connections through that effort in the fall as well. Growing Water Smart, you may recall, commissioners, that we attended in 2024 a work session to identify some land use measures and tools that we could put into place to tie land use and water together. And so what we're doing now is making sure that we follow up on the steps that we identified in that workshop. And then we're also looking ahead where another team might participate in a future workshop to focus more around watershed health and natural resource topics. And that's really dependent on when Sonoran and the Babbitt Institute and the others who host those events make that opportunity available. That's something that we identified in the plan that we would do. And then we've started some conversations about identifying funding needs for the work that's happening that's currently paused, but their group working around that as well. I'm pushing the wrong button, that's the problem. Okay, so we have many other steps and activities happening with partners. So these are the 5 areas that focus on the areas as noted that our partners are leading. And again, I've got quite a long list here of work that's happening across multiple departments. I will just kind of skim through it really quickly, and that brings us to the end here. But we have a lot of wildfire mitigation work that's happening, and of course many grants for that. OEM is doing a lot of work with our partners there. Commissioners in Larimer County are sponsoring the CSU's Colorado Water Center 60th anniversary. And so that's something that is a resource for the community around water literacy and water information and education. And they've been a good partner with us on other things. Our water education series for one several years ago. The Colorado Water Secure Communities is a committee statewide that's sponsored by the Colorado Water Conservation Board and Sonoran Institute to identify long-term water challenges and come up with tools for communities around that. So that's some work that's happening through later this year as well. We do work with the Northern Colorado Water Alliance. That's Lori Kadrich who goes to those meetings. We have continued to work on dedicating water flows through natural resources, and another project coming up this year on East Roaring Creek that Megan mentioned earlier. We have stakeholders on early development of a couple of the river fund projects. There's 2 different ones, and opportunities there in the future. Extension, of course, provides water resources and educational resources, as noted. There's a lot of stream restoration work ongoing. We have a stormwater quality webpage that provides extensive information, and then we are also participating in the Water Conditions Monitoring Committee and Drought Coordination Group through various departments. So that's it. And we're happy to answer any questions you may have or follow up on other resources or information that might be helpful. But we just wanted to make sure that the plan continues to have life and is as important now as ever, I think, with some of the concerns around drought and partnering in the community to address, many of these issues. So happy to answer any questions that you may have or take feedback.
Thank you, Leslie, appreciate it. Commissioner Gafos, I see your hand's raised.
Thank you. Leslie, thank you very much. My feedback is I'm very impressed by the comprehensiveness and the details and the action steps. So just very positive feedback there. This is great, and I'm glad that we are, an important category is agricultural, water, and viability, and I appreciate Extension and our new natural resources person being involved in that. I suppose one question I have regarding water sharing agreements and looking at that, will that also include what's been brought up in the past around being for ag producers, food producers being able to lease water from municipalities when that's appropriate, or will it look at the details of how that might work?
Yeah, I'm going to see if either Heidi or
I think, is that
somebody
a
who's
proper,
directly working on
is that a
that.
proper question? I think it is.
Rightly so that there's confusion as we transition to enjoy our new specialist with Extension. The water team that's working with Climate Smart Future Ready is looking at, yes, both leasing, water sharing agreements, and a suite of other tools that can be collaborated on. It's a fairly robust group, so there are both water providers, ditch companies are participating. We have agricultural users, the Sonoran Institute, the state's Water Conservation Board. So there's a lot of expertise in that room to tackle this idea of what do these tools look like when we're in these ongoing and more extreme drought situations. So yes, to your
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you for more than adequately answering my question.
Thank you,
Commissioner
Heidi.
Stevens, any questions?
Just wanted to touch on the water quality and water efficiency in disproportionately impacted communities. I mean, there is one good thing is there is HB 261145 that is a bill in this session that addresses some water quality issues, so it would be probably good for us to figure out if we want to engage on that one. I think that kind of reading through some of the high-level stuff, because I had forgotten what was in it, but, a little bit more water quality testing by the park owners, and then the park owners also have to bear the cost of compliance. They can't pass that on to the residents. So I think some really good work here on both, water quality and then, public health. And then, I know we have a 3 to 10 year time frame on this, but like also engaging with Tom Gonzalez's office, I think is really important on that too. One of the things that I kind of found out in a forum that I did was that some of that testing has to be done like right at the time of the pipe rupture or whatever happens there, because that's when you can test and know that things are bad, and then they test after that and it's not. But for the time when the problems happen, there is a problem with water quality. And there again, there's issues around these folks even getting water too. So, how do we get the messaging out to, residents of some of their rights? I think that there's an education piece and then, just, I think supporting a bill like this that really toughens up those penalties and makes the park owners accountable is a really important piece, because we still hear from residents that there's water quality issues in these mobile home parks. And so, I guess, I don't, I know there's a lot of work to do in this space, and this is a space that, if you don't have clean drinking water for your residents, I mean, that seems to be a pretty critical thing to work on. So just wanted to kind of highlight those things.
Great, thank you. And would you mind saying the title of the bill again, or the number?
Sure, it's House Bill 261145, and the bill is called Mobile Home Park Water Quality.
Okay, great, thank you.
So I had a couple of things to ask about. Of course, overlaps a lot with, the work with the Forest Health Council, and also some of the, like the Big Thompson Watershed Health Partnership. And one other, I know you probably weren't trying to list all of them, but one other one I want to make sure when you listed the ones that we're working with on the last page on 8, also make sure maybe just Essex Valley Watershed Coalition, because they're doing a lot of, they helped with the Welfare Town Hall the other day, and I think I just always don't want to forget them. They're part of all of that partnership. Mike, when we talk about started to identify funding needs for water, shelf, and fire mitigation as pause, but we have some information with a biomass plan, and others that are, we kind of know the needs and the amount of what we need to do. So we have some of that information, and so we wouldn't be looking to do that again on them. And it says pause, so I might want to ask you about that offline about that, but we're not going to be redundant in trying to do more studies or things like that again, correct, for right now?
No, I think we're just looking at broader funding needs for the county organization, and so there's some information there that might be useful in that broader conversation, but there's nothing specific planned at this point.
Okay, and then the other thing I was looking through here, I remember we gotten some funding for a groundwater study that I believe our environmental planner is working on. And I was curious about how that's tied into this. After, as I think I mentioned earlier, maybe, I don't know if you were here, Leslie, about the aquifer and the work with NOAA and stuff, and how that was really instrumental to them to have this. How is that tied, or did I miss it in here? I wasn't connecting. Is it part of this plan as well, and how we're looking at that and kind of those needs and kind of the groundwater, and I'm assuming that's also tied kind of aquifer levels, because I don't think, it was it was a joint county ag study that they had identified that in Virginia, and they were quite alarmed to find out it was going down 10 to 40 feet a year, and so they were looking at having to shut off, as I mentioned, the water, but they worked with some partners, and obviously almost like miraculous turnaround with not having to deal with it for 40 years. So I'm learning how that's looking, and because we really don't, I feel like we have no idea what's happening underground right now, so, yeah.
Yeah, and Scott Benton is here.
Yeah.
He may have more to add, but we have not started the groundwater study yet. We do
Okay.
have grant funding for it, and we've at a high level scoped out what that study may include. And you could say whether that might address some of those issues or not, but that would be something we'd be starting later this year and into next year.
Welcome, Scott, thank you. Sorry, I was waiting to see if they were gonna call you up or not, so, go ahead, please.
Yeah, good afternoon. So the groundwater study, we were looking at starting around the middle of the year. So that was one thing. And we do have a scope of work, and Originally, something like tying it into data centers was not something that was considered, but I think that we've been fairly clear that since there's not many projects like this out there, we're not sure where the data is going to lead per se, and there is some amount of like flexibility or fluidity maybe on the data that we can get and then what we can get from it. So I think assessing, one hope from the beginning was to get something like a baseline level, right? Because there's not really something to gauge against. And that was one hope for the groundwater study, which would be helpful for all sorts of things, including something like assessing a data center.
Great. That's very helpful. Thank you very much. And I think unless my colleagues have any more questions on that, so. But back to my first general question, that's all will be kind of added into this as well. So, yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. I did want to just give Carrie Weiner the opportunity to quickly introduce Jenna, who's our Natural Resources Coordinator out of Extension, so you can put a name and face together for future reference, and you'll maybe see her at the Ag Advisory Board and other contexts as well, but just very briefly, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Carrie Weiner, Larimer County Extension Director. We're really happy to have Jen on board. She started 2 or 3 months ago. We were able to, when we had a resignation for a different position, we were able to shift funds around to fund Jenna. So it's not a new commitment that the commissioners made, but something that we recognize as a priority from the Water Master Plan that we felt we were able to have a role in. So Jenna is going to be doing a number of things. She has a very diverse background, and she has a lot of strength in being collaborative, and I think that that's one of the things that stood out about her, because we're not going to play the role of being the experts in water. There are plenty of those around, but we need someone at the county level to try to bring together and facilitate people working together to address the ag water issue. And so she's going to be doing small acreage site visits. She's going to be running a native plant master program. And then she's also going to be doing what we can to advance the protection of water for agriculture in Larimer County. So, Jenna, if there's just a quick word that you wanted to say about yourself.
Yeah, good afternoon. It's really nice to meet you all. I'm just elated to be in this role as Natural Resources Coordinator with Extension and working on these topics. A little background. So my background is sustainable agriculture and land stewardship, some environmental politics, and then mitigating human-wildlife conflicts. And I just finished getting my master's at CSU in conservation leadership, which was really wonderful experience. And before that was working for tribal government as managing reservation lands in a sustainable agriculture project in California for a while. So really happy to be here working on these things and getting to work with all these wonderful people. So thank you.
Welcome. Glad to have you. And I think I might have seen your face on some social media or somewhere. So that's probably because I was like, okay, it's making connections or deja vu big time. So any other comments? Just welcome to the team. We're glad to have you. So thank you very much. So Leslie, any more updates from you, or are we going to have
Yes, so I
Rebecca?
understand Rebecca does not have any, oh, you do have one? Okay. Do a quick one here.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Rebecca Everett, Community Development Director. I just wanted to give you a quick preview of your next couple land use hearings because we have some significant items coming up. You should have received the packet earlier for next Monday's hearing, which has 2 appeals on the agenda that are fairly non-standard. So the first is an appeal to request approval for more than one short-term rental on several properties in the Estes Valley. And the second is an appeal to the special events regulations to allow more than 3 events per year on the Paddler's Pub property. And then coming up March 23rd, we will be holding the 6:30 p.m. hearing that day, and that will be the continued hearing of the Aragon septic appeal item, Aragon Holdings on Highway 287, just north of Fort Collins. So just wanted to give you the heads up of those items coming up in the next few weeks.
Thank you. Any questions for Rebecca or Leslie?
Thank you. And I do have a couple quick ones, but I
Yep,
know
go
we're
ahead.
at time,
No,
so
go ahead.
I'll be quick.
Okay.
So one relates to a handout that you have at the dais. We just wanted to let you know through engineering that we are sending notification to subdivisions, as we have for the past couple of years, about road conditions. It's basically notifying them that in our most recent assessment, their streets are aging to the point where they may want to consider different options for maintenance, including our public improvement district program as an option. Sometimes you'll get phone calls or emails when these postcards go out, so we just wanted to let you know, and if you do get those, please do direct them back to engineering, and then they can assist them with questions that they may have, or let us know if there's something you'd like us to address more particularly. We'll do another and final round for this year in April, with about an equal number of subdivisions as well. So just let us know if you hear anything. We also have a meeting coming up on March 12th in Livermore, and sent out email late last week to about 160 folks who have been part of our email lists or who reached out to us about the Steinhoff Hill property. So they've been notified that there will be a town hall style meeting and an opportunity primarily to learn about the Steinhoff Hill and the direction that we're going with that, from the commissioners' conversation to focus on conservation in that area, and then have an opportunity to ask other questions or talk about other topics of interest to them in the area. That's being held at 6 o'clock on March 12th at the Livermore Community Hall. And then you also got an invitation to attend a Pinewood Springs Water Source Protection District. That was an interesting invitation that showed up on a lot of calendars. So we got some more information about it. It is not something that you need to attend, but there is a process that will be going on with that community locally for about a year to assess their source water protection and have technical experts work on it. So it's not something that commissioners need to be part of, but we're happy to update you from time to time, and I've asked the organizer to contact me rather than put it on everybody's calendar ahead of time. So I think those are the main things for now, and I know we're a minute or two past, so we'll wrap it up. Thank you very much.
You're fine. We've had kind of that track record of being one late and one early, and so we're good. So thank you all for the information. I just got some emails from the staff. It looks like the master plan slides, I think maybe you had sent that or not sent that, but if you haven't sent it digitally, can we have those as well? Or constituents asking for those that you just showed today?
Yes.
We have folks listening in, and they
Oh, okay.
are already requesting from
Yeah, absolutely.
any and all information from the slides today.
Yep.
So I just wanted to.
We'll email those as well.
All right, thank you.
You're
All
welcome.
right, with that, at 2:32, we are adjourned. Everyone, have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks for joining us.